Let's return to our special guest with us this week on Media Week, Nick Keenan from Mediacom. Nick, what did you think of those comments there? And certainly this debate about the quality of an eyeball is, why is digital advertising less than print advertising?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, look, first and foremost, you know, Jack is someone who definitely understands the right down to the core issues. You know, Fairfax have got some excellent management, as we've seen now with News Limited as well. I'll pay homage to both the management teams that are leading both those companies, because they've made some very difficult decisions particularly over the last couple of weeks, but they're setting their business up for the future. And they understand the issue around the business model changing. It was a really interesting point that he made around the journalist and the way it's almost, if you like, decoupling the journalist, the old content model where the journalist was very much hedged to the printer, and it was, you know, the age-old adage of stop the press is going to be no more, because the news never stops, and it's got a cycle to it. And that journalist team and that editorial team have been set up purely with a focus on however the news is created and distributed to the way consumers want it to be. So, look, they're absolutely right on that. To answer your question in terms of why digital inventory is so much cheaper than what it is in print, you've got to have a look at the way the consumer buys it, first and foremost. When people pass on $1 for a paper, they're not really buying the words, they're kind of buying, you could argue, they're kind of buying the physical, tangible thing of the paper. And that, over time, historically, led to certain prices and prices on audience, and you didn't have the competition with all the different digital platforms. In the digital space, you know, you've got an issue where it's limitless inventory. For one point, there's, you know, and you could argue the quality of X amount of eyeballs over in one area is not as valuable as the one sitting on, say, a Fairfax or a News Limited title. But ultimately, the market will dictate how that goes. But they're right in the sense that, you know, the quality of an eyeball, it's going to take some market education, and the demand around that, what the market perceives to be an eyeball that's of a higher value than another one. I still think that you know, digitally there's a little bit of infancy there in the business model, and now we're being forced to change. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
And the paywalls as well that are coming, do you think that will increase the pace at which consumers accept, look, okay, we've got this for free for a long time, but now, okay, we're going to have to pay for quality content online? And does it make it easier for you to target then? There
are two business models to answer that question that are of interest. Jack rightly points out, he said, well, we're not actually doing a paywall, if you like. It's really a metered, and that's only 17% of our audience. So I like the segmentation they've done. So in effect, is it a paywall? I think what Fairfax are recognising there is that as a culturally Australia, we're not good for paying for content, particularly digitally. We're one of the highest per capita nations for piracy. Self-confessed piracy, 22% of online Australian internet users self-confessed piracy, have filled out surveys saying that they have pirated TV content, for instance. Game of Thrones was the most pirated piece of TV content in this country, compared to a lot of the other Western nations. So culturally, we don't like paywalls on general mass news and entertainment. So I think Fairfax have recognised that, and I think News Limited have actually recognised that there's a big investment into what they're doing with sport. And you could argue that in niched areas, we've seen that paywalls work. I think the Eureka report and Crikey are examples of that. I think the Fin Review, to a certain extent, is an example of that. The Wall Street Journal in New York is an example of that. So one's financial content, one, you know, on the other side. So we've got examples of it working. So News Limited are looking to, I believe, to go after sport. And I think as mainstream content goes, there is definitely, that's workable. I think the market will pay for that content, and I think they're structuring their business, their paywalls, their digital area. They're going to build it around sport, and you're seeing, you know, the acquisition of the subscription TV. So we're seeing that News Limited wanting to increase their uptake to 50%. And I think that's more of, and then 100% of Fox Sports. So I think that is, you're starting to see the strategies diverge. One's going over here saying, well, they're not going to really pay for everything, but we're a highbrow read, so we're going to go after that space. And we've invested rightly, as he said, in digitally well ahead of the curve. And I see News Limited breaking off to the left, and they're going to own a certain piece of niched content like sport that they think they can monetise. And I think that's really interesting.
All right, we'll continue this discussion coming up after this short break. We'll also be getting the views of stock analyst Roger Coleman on News Corp's plans to split its businesses.